Clocking in for me at just over 100 hours, I did successfully beat Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And it is funny to me that over the last few months, I've either been completely obsessed with Elden Ring or completely obsessed with Final Fantasy. And if you look at my big blocks of playtime, all I've done is jump between the Elden Ring DLC, then wrapped up all of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Both of those games, insanely massive. Both of them, game of the lifetime contenders, in my opinion. Really, really good games. But it is funny that I'm like a survivor now in a sense. Like I get to have my life back. I get to go play other games now. I get to go outside and touch grass and experience life because I've spent so much time invested in all of these stories. And it's hard to do a review on a game like Final Fantasy VII because there are so many layers to it. You have obviously the original game, which came out many, many moons ago, widely revered as the greatest game of all time. Then they announce about 10 years ago that they're going to actually start remaking the games. They do. We get thrown for a massive swerve when we find out it's a trilogy. We get thrown for a massive swerve when we find out the story is very different than what we experienced in the original game. And now we got to wait a little bit more because we're only 2/3 of the way through. And considering the game just came out this year, now I'm talking about Rebirth specifically, we're going to be waiting for a while. They're still actually writing the story and starting refining the actual story before they actually start making it, which is going to take them a long time. So this review will serve well because it's going to be out there for a very, very long time. And we're going to have to wait until we get new information and new gameplay on the finality of this amazing trilogy. There will be spoilers in this, but I think by now, if you know me and you know this channel and you've just heard my love letter to this game and Elden Ring, because they're both on my mind, then I think you know where I stand on this. So if you don't want anything to be spoiled, I said this in the remake video I did. Do yourself a favor and do it properly. Go play the original Final Fantasy VII. I know it's going to look bad. Go replay it. Or go play it, I should say, if you have never done this. Then go play Remake. Then play Rebirth. That's really the only way you're going to truly understand the story and be swept up in this insane narrative the way the rest of us are. And it's investing time and decades into characters which are starting to show insane payoffs. I've never seen a project quite like this where they've taken something so beloved and redone it and made it even more beloved than the original, while still looping in plot elements from the original into the new game. So with that, you're in spoiler territory now. So let's get into it. I would say that the main story largely follows a 1-to-1 until the very end. Obviously the stuff at the end with Zack and with Aerith and all of these multiverses or multi-universes, whatever you want to consider that, does take us for a bit of a swerve. And I know that games like this are done very meticulously and everything is shown to you for a very specific reason. So when you're watching cutscenes and they don't necessarily make sense or things seem slightly off, it's not because the game designers were lazy. It's not because they misunderstood something or because they did the wrong art asset and suddenly a character is wearing one thing and then the next scene they're wearing another. This isn't a quality control issue. This was all done to subvert expectations that you are in fact watching different universes run in parallel. And you don't really understand that until the end. That said, all the really cool story stuff happens at the very beginning and then at the very end. And I would say the entire middle point of the game, I'd say that middle 85 to 90% largely follows the same formula of Remake with very true to the source material with slight sprinkling in of maybe a little bit more. They flesh it out a little better. They make it a little more fun. But the main story beats are all there in pretty much the same order. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I wish, maybe in hindsight, and of course, be an armchair quarterback here, I think that some of the story stuff hits so hard and so heavy at the end, it's kind of almost hard to process it because it takes a few minutes until you actually understand what you're seeing. But some of those really impactful emotional scenes that happen early on kind of lose merit when you don't get a chance to let them like soak and resonate with you. And I'll give you a perfect example. We find out that in our kind of core universe, the existing universe that the game starts in, Aerith's bead is not white anymore. It's clear. It's lost all of its magic, and she understands, and Sephiroth to a large degree also understands that you can kind of take material or themes or people, maybe in Zack's case, from one universe and kind of like smush them into another. And Aerith realizes that she can take her holy bead from one universe and give it to herself in another universe to try to prevent something bad from happening, kind of like the core universe. And okay, that makes sense from just a high level once you kind of understand that. But you don't really get that sense of what's happening until maybe 5 or so minutes after you see the scene where it's clear she's about to die. And she pushes Cloud through the portal back to his universe, giving him her holy bead. And you see Sephiroth like kicking open the church door, ready to murder her. And it's like, oh my God, Aerith's going to die. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a totally different Aerith and her hair's made nice again. She has the bow in her hair. And it's like, wait, didn't she just get killed by Sephiroth? And that's what I mean about like, it happens so fast. That impactful moment of like, oh my God, the doom and gloom, it takes a second to kind of set in. And it hits really, really fast. And I feel like that could have been spread out more to like it have a little bit more of an emotional impact to kind of like set in you before you're already jumping into the next thing. But we very quickly see universes rise and fall, largely based on Zack's decisions. Zack seems to be a massive like variable in this, where he's almost consciously aware now of like stuff he's doing. And in one of the universes when he dies, he's like, well, I tried. Oh, well, see you later. And he fades off into like another universe. So he's almost like a trickster in a sense, like aware of what's happening in his world as well, and everyone else's. So it seems like, once again, poor Cloud is the only one who is being manipulated here. It seems like Aerith, Zack, and Sephiroth are really kind of running the show in a sense. And I'm okay with that. I mean, Cloud was largely, while he was a vessel in the original game, the original Final Fantasy VII game, wasn't until the very end, and then obviously with Advent Children's story, does he really kind of come into his own. But kind of up until then, he's just kind of a dude going for the ride. And that largely remains true, I think, in this game, and I'm okay with that. But I do wish that the main story just cooled it a little bit at times, just so I could absorb it a little bit more. That'd be my only criticism going into the final trilogy. Now, the side missions, very, very different here. The side missions were insane. There were so many side missions. I did every single one of them, and I loved them. Some of them were kind of more comical in nature. Some of them fed into a larger narrative. It definitely gave us more background and character exposition, as most side missions were kind of aligned with someone from your party. And in a game like this, where your entire party is with you the entire time, they're all reacting to the same thing at once, not just the one or two characters that you have in your active party at that time. You can really open up how storytelling is done, because everybody now has a say in everything else that's happening. And because of that, you get some really cool character changes, exchanges, and interactions as they all react to something. Usually, like I said, the one character seems to be impacted the most by this. And this is a gameplay mechanic to help you strengthen a bond with them for the ability system. But We do these like synergy attacks, also for the dating and the gold saucer as well. But the fact that you have these really cool, long-winded stories are fun because you get to see more of your characters doing things and, like what would Barrett be like in this situation? Or how would Red 13 handle something like this? Well, you get to see a lot of that. The side missions, obviously, totally optional. You really just get experience in that kind of party relation system. You don't get like insane pieces of gear, really rare material or anything, and that's okay. You're not doing them to just power grind your character. You're doing them because you love these characters and you don't want the ride to end. And kind of like what I said at the beginning of this video, it is, you do kind of have this like, now what? Like, I feel like a Final Fantasy widow. Like, it's over. Like, I've absorbed all the content. The characters have come into my life. They have spent a lot of time with me, and now they're gone. So you want to do those side missions just to like keep that ride going a little bit longer. And I loved all of it for it. That does tie into the ridiculous amount of mini games and kind of trick or gimmick mechanics that are in this game. I think the first you find is with chocobos. There are so many different biomes to explore in this, and of course the chocobo is the tried and true steed of many a warrior in the Final Fantasy universe. And you go to the first area and it's just a regular vanilla chocobo. He just runs around and okay, cool. The second area you get to, chocobos are different. And then the third area, they're different again. Sometimes they fly. Sometimes they hover. Sometimes they use these like jump pads, these like mushroom pads. They're all different. All of them are different. Sometimes you don't even have a chocobo. Sometimes you're driving around in like this massive buggy. I think that's a good like summary of just, they took something that could have just been basic and they made it even cooler. They adapted the world to it, and it felt very different. Exploring the Gold Saucer deserts feels very different than exploring some of the other biomes where you're hovering around in a chocobo, right? It's different. It feels different. And I like that. And then you have things like all the mini games. Like obviously Gold Saucer is going to be a big part of mini games, but mini games appear everywhere in this game. Queen's Blood has a whole separate narrative with this game designer being this tormented soul and this card coming back to life and fighting this card in this epic battle. And more narrative hooks. Even like Johnny in the going to Costa del Sol and trying to build up his hotel and this weird thing where he's like cloned and there's a bunch of Johnnies, and it was fun. It was all fun. Some of them were heavy, like Queen's Blood. Some of them are joking, like Johnny. Some of them somewhere in between. But all of them had these like trick mechanics to them. Things changed. Even down to the final boss fight with Sephiroth, when Cloud and Zack team up, which probably one of the coolest moments in gaming. Zack has a totally different fighting mechanic than anybody else in the game, where you charge up these abilities and you have this like charge system that you can use to augment his attacks. Even up to the end, they're like, one more mechanic you got to learn, one more thing to do. And I love that. It was so fun that they added in more and more things to do. Everything was like a mini game, a shooting mini game, a riding mini game, absorbing power with Aerith to change dials, using Barrett to machine gun down granite slabs with his gun to explore a cave, Yuffie using a grappling hook, swimming with dolphins, and on and on and on and on. And I loved it. It was like the designers just went wild with this. Like, hey, the only requirement we have for you guys when adding some new content to the game is just go ahead and let's just add in a new mechanic. Like, you want to add a new little piece of the story, that's fine, but it can't be regular. It's got to be some crazy thing. Go collect something, take photos, whatever. And it was so refreshing. And the nice thing is, it was all optional. So if you didn't care about any of that, don't do it. Just go keep playing the main story. Really well done. I really can't think of a game that had side content that was as invigorating as this was, that at times I felt like I had to just almost stop myself from playing the side stuff because I really needed to leave an area. I mean, I think I spent like 30 hours in the gold saucer area doing every little side mission, and it was just so fun. I really can't say enough good things about that. On a technical front, some of the other things to consider, like graphics, just how does this game run and feel? Amazing, amazing. I played at the 60 frame per second mode. It's the same way I played Remake, the same way I played Rebirth. The fact that you can walk the entire map, save for the boat ride in the center, without a loading screen is ridiculously cool. The fact that the world renders around you and you can feel like you're a part of it, that you can sense the difference between each of the biomes, the fact that they look different, the fact that the enemy design is different, that the characters you speak to, the ambiance of the towns and villages you explore, all of them have such their own unique aesthetic is awesome. The game runs phenomenally well. Of course, the slowdown time mechanic is back. So as you're selecting through different abilities, everything crawls to like a 1/30th pace. As you're seeing sparks and bullet shells and everything just fly, magic hitting in super slow motion. The photo mode is amazing. I took so many photos in this game of just fun moments and things that just really wowed me. It was cool to watch that collage of those at the end of the credits. As well, because I was like, they picked a lot of the same pictures I would have picked, which was cool. So maybe there's like a little bit of an artist in me there. But I loved the aesthetic of this game, and the design and the feel of it was just done very, very well. The sound design accompanied those graphics amazingly. It's insane. I mean, I think the original soundtrack overall, the remake soundtrack, has slightly better hits than the Rebirth soundtrack, but the fact that the music is just kind of a constant track rolling in the background and it ramps up and down again, just like it did before with that like adaptive combat system, kind of like Doom, the way Doom 2016 did, where you have that solid bass line, then the music flares up, you start fighting, and then after you finish, the music flares down. But it's still rolling. I love that. It's so well done. I played almost exclusively on my headphones. As you know, I have a pair of Shithell 2s with a really nice pair of Sennheisers. The amount of audio quality in this game is unmatched. The voice acting is so well done. The inflection of the characters, the dialogue, the discussions, the recording quality was amazing. The amount of detail that went into just your characters walking around, like when you're playing with Cloud and you hear basically like the metal clinking, like the sword hitting against his back or his shoulder pad, as you kind of hear his, like when he draws his sword, he kind of slides his sword over his shoulder pad and you kind of hear that metal on metal noise. The leather stretching, the way the boots on the gravel sound versus boots on sand, the way you kind of hear chocobo feathers rustling. Absolute world-class sound design. This is the absolute gold standard in both Remake and Rebirth in terms of overall audio fidelity. If you're an audio nerd like me, you were just foaming at the mouth with glee over how amazing the sound design in this game is. The soundtrack, just like the first, even though I don't think it's as good as the first, in my opinion, an absolute must-have. The fact that they added a new vocal, just like they did in the first one. If you remember in the first one, it was hollow. This one is No Promises to Keep. Amazing. I am beyond stoked, like literally right now getting goosebumps for the musical tour that they're doing later on in the year. I think I'm going to go see it in October here in Orlando. I cannot wait to just experience some of the soundtrack with a live orchestra. It's going to be just mind-blowingly good. I just cannot wait. Even if you aren't somebody who typically invests in the official soundtracks, the OSTs, as they say, do yourself a favor, open your music streaming service of choice, and just look up some of the hit songs from this game. You'll know which ones they are right away. Some of them just hit so hard with slight tweaks to the music, again, between combat and non-combat, that just, it takes you to a different place in time. And the world building in this game, I don't think would be complete without that marriage of the graphics and the sound. And they absolutely crushed it. As far as the gameplay, like I said earlier, you got that amazing, amazing combat with the joint abilities and party mechanics, which do increase over time. You have the ability to obviously swap out weapons. You have that kind of behind the scenes wheel of giving yourself new abilities. If you do side missions and you hang out with certain party members, you'll unlock new attacks for them. The attacks are a visual treat to watch, first of all, but do insane amount of damage, and you feel like a total badass when you pull them off. They're definitely like game changers. All of the materia that you can summon in this game is insanely cool. The way that the beasts come down like Neo Bahamut, oh my god, dude, it is one of the coolest introductions ever. The fact that they fight along with you and you can continue to cast abilities while you're fighting just with your regular characters. The fact that they have this massive like departure attack where they'll do something to just give you like a little bit more heads up is really, really awesome as well. Gameplay, really, the bosses were not bad. They were larger than life. The fights were larger than life. They were grandiose. It was one of those things that when I was done, I felt like I was gripping the controller hard and like almost shaking because some of the music and the fidelity just really hits you. And you get this sense of urgency in a lot of the fights, especially when you're fighting the Turks. Some of those fights are ridiculously punishing. It felt gimmicky twice to me. Once was during the final mission of Gilgamesh, where you have to fight two materia at once. And the final Sephiroth fight was a little aggravating at times. I did die numerous times at the very end when he's got like 0.0001% health because it wasn't really made clear to me what I was supposed to do. I actually thought I was supposed to die the first time because I wasn't understanding the mechanic. Aerith continues to remain the weirdest player in combat, although that problem might be solved considering she is gone from our universe now. Or at least the core universe. You know, she's a ghost or whatever. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Aerith remains to be the weakest link to me and my play style. Pretty much my running crew was Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. Tifa is insanely awesome when you start building up her martial art abilities and really start punishing enemies hard and getting in a cycle of dodging and hitting a hard ability, charging it up, hitting a hard ability. She's just such a cool character, and I just loved getting up close and personal with enemies. And then having Barret out on the sidelines is kind of like a defense role and an overall support role. Not, casting buffs on the defense side, but, a lot of support role, just kind of whittling down enemies. And then you obviously have Cloud for those big bombs when he charges up. And I rolled most of the game like that. But again, going back to what I said before about how this game is full of side missions and mechanics, all the characters have their own gimmicks too. Red 13 with the Vengeance system, being able to parry attacks to unleash the Siphon Fang to do insane amount of damage. Yuffie with all of her various martial arts was really, really fun. We already talked about Tifa and Barret and Cloud. Ket Shi, of course, has his regular Ket Shi mode, and then he could jump on the Moogle, and he can gamble if you want him to gamble to roll die, and he could detonate the Moogle to do tons of damage and then resummon it. Kind of like a diva in Overwatch almost. Really, really cool. Really cool mechanics for everybody. I loved all of it. And just going back to just the layers of depth in this game, just rolling around with Cloud, auto-attacking and casting an ability, it makes sense. But then you start being introduced to new characters and new mechanics, and it's like, whoa, okay, well, that's cool. And you're going to find a party that works for you. You're going to find your play style, and you're going to just have your dream team, and you're going to be just fine. The fact that all the characters level up, even the ones you're not actively using, was nice, and turns out required in that insane finale boss fight where you were fighting Sephiroth across different planes of existence simultaneously with different party members all working together in unison, broken up into different groups. So if you expect Cloud to do the heavy lifting for you, he can most of the time if you want. But obviously at the end, you're going to need to rely on others to kind of finish that. And those fights are kind of gimmicked and almost tailored towards those different abilities, which was really, really fun. And I I can't say enough good things about the amount of layers of complexity in this game. Now, wrapping up with the story elements, very JRPG-ish. I will admit, while I was tracking that there were different universes basically by the dog logo, a couple of them went over my head. But they're there. Going back and rewatching some other YouTubers discuss the ending and going back after beating the game and getting the mission selector to go back and see stuff, I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I missed that. If they can pay this off, which we still haven't gotten the payoff yet, then this will go down as probably like the greatest thing ever in the history of ever. The fact that you took an original game that was beloved and cracked it open into 3 parts and did even more crazy things with it, with some characters almost breaking the fourth wall at times. If they can pull that payoff, oh my God, it's going to be good. We'll wait and see for the finale. Based on everything I've seen, we're in good hands. But it does get a little weird. For sure, it gets a little weird. There's a lot of times that while the story makes sense to me, especially at the end, I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, didn't Aerith just die? Why is she alive? Oh, she's dead again. Why is Zach here? Zach's gone. He's aware. He just died. I thought he was supposed to save Biggs, but no. Why is he over here at the reactor instead? Or why is he helping Cloud? Like, I didn't understand that it was showing multiple universes all simultaneously. I wasn't tracking that. But looking back on it, it works well. But it's like one of those games you have to kind of focus on and like really get into the zone. Because I'm sure if you have no idea what I'm talking about, and I wouldn't just start explaining the ending of Final Fantasy VII to you, you'd be like, what? But it does pay off well. My biggest criticism with the writing is, and they did this in the first one too, you have major character arcs being developed. And a lot of them do have great payoffs. The ones that don't end very abruptly with like a character just scoffing or going, or and they just cut to something else. And it's like, why wouldn't you finish that sentence? It's almost like that sitcom-itis. It's like a bad episode of Seinfeld where the characters just have to talk to each other. Just sit down and talk for 5 minutes and let's remove the ambiguity. But as a player, you're wanting to know the answer to these questions and the game isn't going to give them to you, and it's forcing you to continue playing. And you're like, but I want to go back to that discussion. I want to know, like, what was he saying, or what was the intent of this scene? It's like, that's not important anymore. You have to move on. And I wish the characters would just talk a little more. That's the only thing I could complain about. But again, going back to what I said, you know, if there is a payoff here, and if there is a, you know, massive, oh my God, ending moment, then yeah, all of it was worth it. All of it was worth it and then some. The fact that I have collectively spent over 200 hours now replaying the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, the fact that I still like reading fan theories, the fact that I still listen to the original soundtrack of the first one, and I'm going to get the second one now. I didn't want it to spoil. I wanted to finish the game before I got into it. Just shows the lasting impact and legacy a game like this has. And it transcends larger than life. I mean, it reminds me of being a child, playing it after school. When I was in high school, I remember playing Final Fantasy VII and beating it and enjoying it. And now we've cracked that open world again, that world open again in such a grandiose fashion, with the stakes being even higher than they were before. Very impressive. I really, 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 really recommend this game. I have said on record before, and I stand by this, that to me, Final Fantasy VII Remake was the greatest game of all time. It edged out Shadow of the Colossus to me, which held that coveted spot for many, many years. And not to take away from Remake or Rebirth, but I think I'm going to amend that narrative, and I'm going to say that the Final Fantasy Remake series is now becoming the greatest thing ever. The amount of payoff here has never been rivaled and probably never will be, unless we crack open the well on like the original Mario or something. I don't think we're ever going to have a point in history again where a game was so beloved and redone so well and still so beloved that characters matter, that you want to go back and invest, you want to go back and play this again. Remakes come and go. Okay, a lot of games get the graphical upgrade, the better fidelity, better frames per second, new in sound design, whatever. Not like this. not like this. There's just too many layers here to peel back that this is just a simple remaster. It's so much more than that. It's so much more expansive. The story is more grandiose. The characters that we know and love, we continue to know and love. I'll close with this. I have read that there is a chance that after the next game comes out, they may want to explore new characters and stories within the Final Fantasy VII universe, which warms my heart. My mind races. My nerd juices are a-flowing. I would love that. I don't know if we're going to get that, but they've painted such a canvas of so many cool things that we want to continue to learn about. There's so many more stories in this world that could be told. It's awesome. It's just so good. So I wanted to give my video review. I knew it was going to be long. I had a lot to say. I have even more to say about this, but I'm just going to leave it with this. I am so grateful that I was able to invest the time I did in the original game and in this trilogy to date, because it is a masterclass in how to captivate and inspire people. And it warms my heart to see people talk about this game and play this game and enjoy the music and enjoy the artwork and enjoy the gameplay, because it's just that damn good. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my long form review of this. I have, like I said, I have notes. There's more to say, but I think I said it all for now. Thanks again for watching. Take care of yourselves. I'll be like you, waiting for the next one. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side. Bye-bye.